Hey everybody, Craig Lieberman here. Today I'm launching Car Talk, a new segment of my YouTube channel. This is an interview format and it will allow me to share the stories of so many amazing people I've met during my 35-year career in the automotive segment. Today's guest is Chuck Borden, a stuntman with 40 years of experience, including 2 of the last Fast and Furious movies. So we're going to get to that interview right after this break. Have you ever thought, why is my wireless bill so expensive? Well, now you can do something about that. So I want to tell you about Mint Mobile, with whom I'm partnering for today's video. Now, you've probably heard about Mint Mobile already. Maybe you've seen the hilarious ads from Ryan Reynolds, who by chance is also an owner of Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile's service is awesome. For starters, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15, and you don't have to sacrifice coverage, speed, or even data. They're also built on the nation's largest 5G network, which is fantastic. How do they do it? It's real easy. They keep their costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and the salespeople, and everybody wins. Switching to Mint is super easy too. The whole process only takes 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, Mint has a great customer service team to help you through it. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. So if you want to get great wireless service at a great price from a great company, visit my link, mintmobile.com/Craig, or click the link in my description right below the video. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning fast 5G and a free mobile hotspot. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as just 2 lines. So what are you waiting for? Get hooked up with Mint Mobile today. Everybody welcome Chuck Borden today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know, you and I met in Ahoy, Rotterdam, October 22, which feels like it was 3 months ago, but it's actually now, what, 8 months ago?
Is that weird? It seems like it was like yesterday.
Yesterday, really. So it's good to have you on the show. I remember when we were, it's my pleasure. We were standing next to each other for 2.5 days, drinking Fantas and signing autographs and telling stories. And I was fascinated by your stories. You just seem like a very down-to-earth kind of guy, and your stories, the way you were telling stories was just absolutely captivating. So,
thanks.
I'd like to share, your career details, your background, and all that kind of stuff. So you've done many jobs, and it goes back to the year I graduated high school, and so you are definitely a veteran by every definition. So
that just means I'm old.
Older, I would say.
Older, yes, indeed. How I started, I was an athlete growing up as a kid. I raced a lot of BMX, mostly local, and then got into go-karting. And I started really getting heavy into go-karting with WKA. And it started out just in the SoCal area and doing Oxnard, Riverside, the smaller tracks, Adams Track and stuff like that. And then before you know it, I just got so caught up in it. I'm going to Phoenix, I'm going to Portland, and the next thing you know, we're packing up to go to Daytona. And it got out of hand, like everything. But I mean, racing was a big part of my life. But outside of racing, I did school sports, the typical football, baseball, basketball, whatever it took. I just loved competing. It was a challenge for me to do something like that. And so, it just, one thing led to another, and I just kept going. And then when I was still in high school, I think I was 17 years old, I started working at a place called Malibu Grand Prix in Pointe Hills. And we laughed about some of these things. But I started in the pits. Actually, I started in the game room. They had a game room and stuff like that. And then they moved me out to the pits. And I quickly moved through the ranks. And next thing you know, I'm in the shop. And they made me the shop foreman. And I was the youngest shop foreman in the company's history at that point. It was perfect for me because I was racing go-karts still at the time. And I would go in and work the Friday night shift, which nobody wanted because they wanted to go out and party. And I thought it was great. I'd go in and take my go-kart in. Once all the cars were on the track, I really had nothing to do until the end of the night. So I'd bring my go-kart in, I'd tear it down, I'd put it in a solid tank, I'd clean it. I had all my tools, everything I needed there. And I'd prep it and we'd finish up. I'd load it back on the trailer. And the next morning I'd head out to whichever track we were racing that Saturday morning. And, it was perfect. It was great.
Free safety wire, right?
Yeah, free everything. Free, I need some zip ties. Here we go. Here's a hose clamp. Perfect.
Perfect. There we go.
Yeah, while I was working there, we used to take the cars out in the middle of the night after our shift was over. I'd have a late shift, and by the time I got the cars prepped for the next morning, for the guys coming the next morning, and the assistant manager, who was one of my best friends, Mike Thayer, he would close up. And by the time he got through cashing everything out and stuff, we were the last two there, and it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're both wired and stuff like that. So sometimes we go out for breakfast and stuff like that. But then after a while, I was like, let's take the cars out and drive. We're in an industrial area that's completely quiet. And we drive around and we take them out on the track. Well, of course, at night, the sprinklers are on. The track is soaking wet. These are race tires, the slicks. They don't stay on the track. So we're spinning out. We're just having a good time. And he makes a comment and says, you know who would love this is one of my best friends, Mike Thayer. He's a stuntman. Not Mike Thayer, Mike Vendrell. He said, he's a stuntman. I'm like, he's a what? And it's like, that was on the list, this long list of careers I would have loved to have. And so he invited him out. He came out. We drove around and had a good time and joked and laughed. And at the end of the time, and this time I stopped and pulled him aside and said, hey, I've always wanted to be a stuntman. I think it would be cool. What would it take for me to be a stuntman? And he said, well, let me take you to the set with me and you see if you like it, if it's for you, because it's not for everybody. And he took me, my first movie set was Fast Times at Ridgemont High for the football sequences.
What?
And at Van Nuys High School, doing all the football stuff. And I was just pulling pads and just helping where I could. I wasn't in it. But it was a memorable experience. And then at the end of the night, the morning comes in, we go get something to eat and stuff like that. And he tells me, well, what do you think? And I said, dude, this is what I do on weekends for fun and you're getting paid for it. Hell yes, I'm doing this. And so the seed was planted. We trained for a little bit. He helped me with some educational stuff. And then he got divorced and moved away and I lost track of him. But the seed, like I said, the seed was planted. And I was like, all right, what do I do to get on a movie set to meet people? I was an extra. I was a production assistant. I was a grip. I was camera. I pulled cables. Like I said, anything to get on the movie sets and meet people. And slowly but surely, I would meet them and get headshots together and say, hey, this is what I can do. And, if you got something, and of course, they all go, yeah, everybody wants to do this. So 3.5 years later, I'm finally getting a break. And then, I guess being around long enough, somebody said, just hire the damn guy so he'll leave us alone. And and then the rest is history. Once I got my SAG card, I never looked back.
Yeah, that was many years ago.
Years ago.
Stunts were being done. Stunts were being done practically.
I think that was 84 when it started, and I got in the union at 88. So
in the late 70s, early 80s, I lived in Santa Clarita, which is called Newhall, Valencia, Candy Country, all that back in those days. So they were filming everything there. Chips, Knight Rider.
A-Team. Baba Black Sheep. Dukes of Hazzard was there. Dukes of Hazzard was based at Indian Dunes, I believe.
Dunes and Disney Ranch off of Plaza.
And Disney Ranch.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I got to ride my bicycle or skateboard or whatever it was to down the set because they were doing it on the old road, right off of Calgrove. And so I saw a lot of that stuff and I was fascinated. And so when I first started in school, I started with television and film. And I had a guy who's in the business. Well, his family was in the business. He says, really? Honestly, you're going to have to know people to get in there because this is before the internet. You couldn't create your own motion picture and then send it to a producer or director. That's not the way it worked.
Nope.
Today, these people can create movies on YouTube. It's not that way back then.
No, it wasn't.
I was always flabbergasted by what was going on with the stunt guys. And then the first movie I saw about was Hooper. Remember that movie? Oh, I loved it. It was a huge inspiration for me. It was way before my time, but when I was getting going and I watched that, I was like, this is awesome. And it's one of my favorites. It's a silly little fun movie, but man, from Stuntman's point of view, it's the Bible. Now, first was Smokey and the Bandit, and I believe the guy who directed and
Hal Needham, that's the guy.
Yep. That's the guy.
Hal Needham, he was a big time stuntman. He did a lot for the industry. Back in the olden days and stuff like that, they were the stuntman people were paid as extras. They weren't given any credentials. They weren't given anything. Hal helped push that to get it through people like Burt Reynolds and stuff like that, because him and Burt were best friends. As a matter of fact, when they were first getting the business, they kind of roomed together and stuff like that because of Burt's involvement and stuff like that, and Hal pushing. He got Stuntman recognized and really got us where we're at today.
And that was the previous generation of stunt persons, right? I remember meeting Terry Leonard on the set of Too Fast, Too Furious.
The legend, true legend.
Yeah, He could tell. You could tell the guy would go to bar fights with John Wayne.
Oh yeah.
Beat up 50
Probably
people.
for real.
Yeah, no, for real. No, he told me some stories.
Oh, I believe it too.
So everybody on set, all the stunt players on Too Fast and Furious wanted to show how great they were. So everybody's doing 10 miles an hour faster than they're supposed to be doing, that kind of stuff.
That was their idea of like, okay, I'm going to show what kind of abilities have, and it has the opposite effect. I mean, guys, when I'm a coordinator and stuff, like I see that, and it's like, you're a wild man, you're a daredevil, and you're dangerous, and I'm not gonna have that on set. When we set something up, it's very specific, and that's why people don't get hurt. You
Right.
start trying to showboat, then people get hurt. Somebody gets hurt on my set, it's reflected back on me, even if I had nothing to do with it. People look at me as like, well, that's one of your guys. I'm like, what do you say? Yeah, it was one of my guys, somebody I brought in. So
On Too Fast, somebody was driving out of the warehouse and didn't look to see that there was no ramp there, so it just dropped off the loading platform on one of the RX-7. I'm sure that's very rare. You don't hear much about stunt accidents anymore, but the exception was the one with Rust with Alec Baldwin. That's pretty recent.
Yeah, and that wasn't even stunt related. I mean, that was a weapons thing, and but still. And this is, what's funny is we fight with producers and stuff like to be on the set for things like this, and there's like, oh, we don't need you. It's not a stunt. It's not a stunt. And then something like that happens. I'm like, guys, had somebody like myself or Terry or somebody like that has experience of this, that wouldn't have happened because we wouldn't have allowed it. And then I think that's part of it too. They don't want somebody to come in and boss some people around, But it's about safety, and it's rare, but it happens. It still happens. It's a shame.
We were speaking earlier at another time about the incident with the movie of Twilight Zone back in the 1980s. I think it was about 1982, filmed in Indian Dunes. There's a scene with a helicopter where the actor Vic Morrow is carrying two Vietnamese kids under his arms to escape the camp, and the helicopter came down. And tell the story. I know you know the details.
I wasn't there, but I do know it, and I just happened to be there the next day, and it was all cordoned off, and I didn't find out until that night when I got back home, because we went motorcycle riding up there. That was at Indian Dunes, and we'd go ride up there all the time. But anyway, I guess what happened is it was Vic running across the stream with these two kids, a war sequence. There's bombs going off and smoke. It's nighttime, blah blah blah, and there's a helicopter above them, and they kept calling the helicopter come in lower. Bring it down lower. And the pilot says, like, I can't come in lower. And they, goddamn, bring it down lower. And he finally brought it in too low. And one of the explosions apparently hit the tail rotor, which took him out of commission. And it dropped out of the sky like a rock. And it just happened to be right over the top of Vic and the kids and killed him instantly. Just chopped him to bits.
It's horrible. I can't even imagine.
It's, and that's what I'm talking about. I mean, that was stunt related, so that was a different story and stuff like that. But those situations can be, easily avoided with some proper preparation and push this stupid Hollywood ego aside. It's like, we got to go bigger. In this case, we got directors and ADs yelling to bring a helicopter down in an unsafe condition. And it should have never happened, And the pilot was probably afraid to get banned and blackballed and stuff like that. And especially back in those days, you didn't do like that because they would just, your name would get out there and nobody would hire you anymore. Now everybody's like, nobody's afraid to say boo and stuff. And you have some director that tells you, oh, we want you to jump off that building. It's like, yeah, you jump off the building. It's the times have changed.
For the better,
Yeah, absolutely.
And today with so much CGI going on, some people might think that stunt players are not needed, but that's not the case, is it?
Not at all. It's there's actually probably more jobs created now because with the CG, you got like the avatars and stuff like that. All those characters are a person at some point with a motion capture suit on, and then they just animate over the top of them and stuff. So they're still performing, doing the stuff. The performances have changed though, because back in the days, if we wanted to fly through the air, you got launched through the air. Now you just put some wires on you and you can maneuver them wherever you want to go. So now it's safer. Let's just say the stunts are different. Back in the day it was rough, tough, really ground hitting, pounding stuff, and now it's more, precision stuff, wire work, balances, gymnasts and stuff like that are great for this stuff because it's right up their line. So it's definitely evolved and changed.
So Fast 9 and Fast 10, they are the epitome of the how can I rephrase it? No, but here it is. I'm not a 16-year-old kid from the inner city or 19-year-old kid who has never been around cars and racing and all that kind of stuff. So we know a little more about physics. So I'm still trying to figure out how Vin Diesel jumps from a moving car, flies from one bridge to another bridge with an oncoming car and goes through the windshield and then lands in the driver's seat and they all live.
Oh, we do that all the time.
I see it on the 405. No, I see it I see it on intersection takeovers all the time.
Oh yeah, I believe that.
That's God thinning the herd is what that is.
Yeah, and you know what, and that's part of my beef. I mean, I'm proud to be part of the Fast and Furious family and stuff like that. It's been a great little run, and of course it's fun to be out there doing that stuff. But we're doing the stunts for real. The car crashes are real, but then when you see it on film, they've added so much CG and they've manipulated it so much, it doesn't look real. It looks like a video game to me. And it's a shame because it's like, I was there. I saw it. I saw how real this was. And it was nothing like what you just showed.
Now, I have a question now. So cars today are getting all kinds of crazy electronics. And I'm going to segue into the electric cars future with stunts in a minute. But how my wife's car has a push button brake.
Yep.
Okay, now back in the old day, we used to do J turns, right?
Yep.
With the handbrake, right? They ain't got none of those anymore. That we used to call a power slide, right? You boys call it drifting.
Yep. But even before the handbrakes and stuff like that, there was the foot brake on the floor.
Yeah, I remember that on the firewall right by the fuse box, right?
And
the dimmer switch.
The dimmer switch, exactly, which nobody does. Like that button on the thing is like, what's that do? It's like, don't push it, it'll explode. And they don't have a clue.
Right.
With those foot brakes, they were great because the release was a little lever that right above it that you pull and it would release it and stuff like that. Yeah. So we would pull it out, put a window clamp on it to keep it out. And that way, when you push it down, you can let it up and it will release. So you have the equivalent to what we have with the hydraulic brakes today. The handbrake's the same thing. It had a button on the end of the stick. So we take duct tape the button down so you can just pull it and it would release and it wouldn't stay locked. But that way you have control of it. Now, of course, you just put a whole hydraulic brake system in it and it's nice and easy.
Now, you use duct tape. I used to use a small screwdriver to press the button in. So you have to just pull a handle. You don't have to press the button.
In many cases, they would give us cars and they'd be rentals. Oops, I'm not supposed to say that. Right. Because the productions were cheap, they would rent a car and then they would give it to us as a stunt car. Mm-hmm. And so it had to go back in one piece, with the exception of flat spots on the tires. Right. Can't control that. So we would just tape it down because afterwards you just remove the tape, no big deal, and there you go. There's your car back.
We did something like that in Too Fast, Too Furious. We had rental Durango as a stunt. It was a follow car with a remote driving steering wheel, and it partially went off the bridge and hit the safety ramp, and the airbags went off the front end is all trashed, and they just fixed it in our body shop and sent it back. Yep. That was hysterical. But generally speaking, movie sets are more safe today than they ever have been.
Yep, they really are. For a multitude of reasons and stuff like that. Like I said, the olden days, the westerns and stuff like that, it was just cowboys just doing their thing, and there was no kind of regulations. There was no safety protocols. They're really the coordinators weren't a coordinator like they are today. They would get a handful of people together and they would do it, figure it out themselves and do it. Now you've got stunt coordinators, second unit directors and stuff like that. These are all seasoned veterans and stuff. They'll go through and they'll step it through step by step and make sure everything's safe and sound.
Choreographed.
We're given a lot more clout on set than we were in the past. Before the stuntman would say something in the past and everybody would just shut up. You don't talk about. Now if the stunt coordinator says something, it usually gets everybody's attention, especially the ADs will usually stand up for us and say, listen what he says. And if he says it's not going, it's not going. And they stick up for us. That's the only reason we have it, safe sets nowadays.
Far cry from the days of Terry Leonard. Wasn't he injured in a stunt? Yeah.
He was hurt quite seriously, duplicating Yakima Canutt's stagecoach transfer off the stagecoach onto the horses, and he'd ride on the horses on the yoke and stuff. and be there. And then he dropped down underneath it, slide underneath the stagecoach. Yakima Canutt did it. And so Terry was going to redo it. And apparently he hung up underneath the stagecoach because he didn't have enough clearance. He probably hit a bump or something like that. And he caught and broke his hip and it beat him up. I mean, you met him, so you've seen how he walks. Yeah. He doesn't walk the straightest.
He walks like John Wayne in that kind of gait that he has, like he's reaching for one of his revolvers, right? But yeah,
that was the days. I mean, you were a tough guy. We talked about a story with the old time stuntman, a guy named Wally Rose, a legend, another one of these guys that started way back when. He was Mo Howard's stunt double in the Three Stooges. Yes, they had stunt doubles in the Three Stooges. So
I can believe it. My dad used to watch that stuff.
Yeah, but he was Mo's double, and when I met him, he was already well retired and stuff like that. And I had a scene in a movie where I needed to beat up an old man in the back of a cop car. It's a comedy, and I got Judge Reinhold and Forrest Whitaker as the cops inside this car, and we're looking at them through the front windshield, and through the back windshield, you can see an image of this old man getting beaten up. And so I hire Wally. It's like, this guy's perfect. And so I'm trying to make it safe. I put a pad down. It's like, all right, you're going to come in with this walker, and then these kids are going to come out. You'll knock you down. Then you're out of frame, and they're going to be hitting with the walker and kicking, blah, blah, blah. So we really won't see you a lot until we move outside the car when they get a call to leave. And then I need you to crawl up on the back of the car. So Wally, we do the scene. It works out great. Okay, let's move outside the car. The car's going to pull away. Put one of my stunt drivers in it and have Wally on the back. I said, Wally, I can put a mat down. We get you some knee and elbow pads and blah, blah, blah. And he said, kid, I don't need no pads. We didn't use pads back in my days. You just did it. I'm like, but this is not those days. You don't have to. I don't need no pads. I'm like, copy that, sir. You have at it. And he did. He climbed up in his car. He got halfway up. The car takes off. He falls flat in his face on the asphalt, cut. And I'm like, I just killed Wally Rose. And he gets up and he's like, rushed himself off. He's like, that's how it's done. I'm like, oh, bravo, man. You're tougher at 80. You're tougher than I am in my 20s.
It has changed.
Different times. Different times.
You know, falling and being dragged by things, part of it. Being on fire is part of it. Yep. What about the heights kind of stuff? I mean, are you doing high falls? Are you hanging from helicopters?
Helicopters, yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
All that stuff. I mean, anything you can think of. It's everything from being hit. I mean, and when you talk cars and stuff, sometimes it's driving a car. Sometimes you get hit by a car. Sometimes you get thrown from a car. I've done all these things, you know, jumping cars, flipping car, whatever, crashing them. And then other times it's just, you just slide into this thing and hit this mark. Okay. So it's all that stuff.
So I was doing that in the 80s with my Isuzu.
yeah, exactly. That's what I used to do in front of Malibu Grand Prix with a 66 Plymouth station wagon.
I have my mom's station wagon. It's here, Chrysler LeBaron station wagon. I think I was training myself for that career, and I didn't even know it.
You didn't know it.
Didn't know it. So the heights things, I don't think heights. I can get over it because
it's a different world. I'm not crazy about heights, but I've learned to respect it, and I've learned to respect the gear and my abilities and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, there's some people that love it, you know, high rise workers, and there's high fall guys that they have no problem with it. I don't know. It's always that funny little saying we always said. It's like, it's not the fall that's going to kill you. It's the sudden stop at the bottom. So I'm not worried about falling. I'm worried about stopping down the bottom.
Right. Yeah, that's that thing. So you've done some helicopter work, right?
I did. I doubled Liam Neeson hanging from the helicopter on Darkman, the first Darkman. And we spent 4 weekends in downtown LA doing this chase sequence that was, to this day, it's part of my highlight reel because it's just something. It's something different. It's something spectacular, but more importantly, it's something that will never be done again because the insurance companies won't let it. And it's hard enough getting permits to bring helicopters between buildings now, and we got 3 of them with me hanging off the front one. You know, it's just it was nuts. But it was a great job, and I love the memories on that are just awesome.
Yeah, I can imagine flying helicopters between buildings. You see some of that in The Matrix, remember, in the first movie?
Yep.
And I'm like, how much was that practical? I've been around motion pictures a little bit to know how they did it. They were going to be hanging a static helicopter above a green screen. There's pads underneath it, and everything else is just CG.
Yep. That's nowadays. When I did Darkman, none of that. It was all 100% real, every bit of it. The thing is, though, you watch it and you can tell it's real. I mean, there's with the exception of the close-ups of Liam, swinging through, and they did his close-ups and stuff like that. Obviously, that's green screen, and it's very dated because back then it was, the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in there. They didn't have the technology, and it was rotoscoped in, and it was really shaky and stuff like that. But the exterior stuff, 100% real. There was nothing added in there.
Rotoscoping. Yeah, they're still doing that in the early 2000s, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they still do it sometimes now.
I have a friend,
circumstances.
And I have a friend who works in CG, right? He's one of those artists. If you want to see a movie with no CG that's really amazing, go back to 1970 and watch a movie called Tora, Tora, Tora. They filmed it at Pearl Harbor, and all those planes were there. They were all remote controlled and all that kind of stuff. They had safety wires on the tail hooks, the tail wheels, and that kind of stuff. But all that stuff was real. Real. There was no such thing as CG.
No, that was a great movie, too. So I think Terry was actually on that.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to become a stunt person today, what does that look like? You talked to me about you're doing skateboarding, you're doing BMXing, you're doing shifter carts, 125s, I suppose.
Yeah, I was in a non-shifter cart because when I was starting, the shifter carts weren't really popular yet, and I was in a 100cc Yamaha class, the Yamaha Light, and the shifter carts didn't really start getting their wheels until about 2 or 3 years later, and all of a sudden they started evolving, and then everybody went to shifter carts and stuff like that. And it was good and bad because I can remember the first year they brought the shifter carts out to the Long Beach Grand Prix, and the shifter carts were doing like 4 seconds or something like that slower than the Formula Ones, and was just making here's a $5,000-$10,000 shifter cart that's against $1 million, Formula One, and it was just. There was no comparison, and the organizers like, we can't have this. This is making the Formula Ones look bad, and it did. With the exception of straightaways, the carts would actually outhandle them in the current turns.
Well, yeah. First off, there's no weight, right?
No, none.
Right? And the drivers are typically about 130 pounds in shifter carts, right? They're 16-year-old kids.
Yeah, exactly. And I was probably a heavy guy because I was probably 150 at the time. 130 to 150, somewhere in there. Yeah, I would love to get back into it again and do some shifter carts and stuff like that. But
we're too heavy now because
we're fun. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's got 14-year-old kids out there. My friend Ryan Woon has a kid who's I think 8 years old, and he's already doing championship stuff.
Oh yeah.
Carts. Yeah, I mean,
they weigh nothing.
Kid's probably 70 pounds, if that.
And 10 pounds in that because. A lot of times for my weight class, I had to add lead underneath the seat, and it was literally. And I take off weight from the cart so I can put it on the seat because I didn't want it on the wheels or anything like that because you don't want it spinning. Take it off the axles, and I was shaving ounces off. I would just add it underneath the seat so I'd be a little bit more aerodynamic and the weight difference would be better. But yeah, it's amazing that something that small, couple pounds is a huge difference.
Yeah, power to weight ratio. So you worked on Fast 9 and Fast 10.
I did.
Yeah. So let's talk about Fast 9.
Fast 9, I was in the sequence in Tbilisi, Georgia. And it was the big armadillo sequence with the two Letty and Dom's cars with the magnetic things in it to draw things in. And so we did that whole sequence in Georgia and over a 5-week period. A lot of fun. Met a lot of great people. The best part of jobs like that is it brings in a lot of different people. And the people they brought in were people that have been friends of mine since I started in the business that I haven't seen since I started in the business. And so we got to all hang out again, guys like Charlie Paterni and Wally Crowder, Eric Cord, some of these old timers, Henry Kinji, Mike Ryan. These guys are just legends and stuff. And I hadn't seen them in years. And now I get to hang out we just have dinner and just hang out and talk. So that was the best part of the job. But then we would get to do really fun stuff too. I would play one of these mercenary guys, hanging out of the car, shooting weapons at the armadillo, trying to stop it. And then the next thing I'd be on a passenger up on the sidewalk and, avoiding cars driving at me. Dom's car, we get forced up on the sidewalk and I had to dive out of the way. And the first take, an extra tripped me and I fell in front of the car. And
while the car was moving, the car,
came off the street, drifts off the street onto the sidewalk, and I'm one of the first people. Me and this girl have to get out of the way, and an extra just decided he wanted to be in the shot and just ran across and tripped me. And I went down, and luckily I kept rolling. But Jeff saw me and stopped almost immediately. And he was white as a ghost. He's like, man, I was coming fast, and I saw you go down. I thought you were a goner. Like, no, I had a presence of mind to just keep rolling. But he was on the brakes. He wouldn't have hit me anyway. You know, that's one of those things. You know, we rehearse the hell out of these things so they're safe. And then it takes one person to think they want to be a hero or to try to be in the shot, which they would have never been seen anyway, and screwed it all up and could have cost somebody their life, me in particular.
Extras or mixing with stunt players is kind of scary. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had probably 40 American or the U.S. Based stunt people on, and then there was at least that many 30 to 40 Georgian stunt people as well. So we had a lot of stunt people. But then, you know, you got to fill up a sidewalk, and you got cars and this and that. So you got 10, 15 cars out in the street, and you got some other people over here. And then we put on the sidewalk, and there's only like 20 guys. Like, well, that doesn't look like that much when you put them together. So let's filter in some people that can go in the foreground and be out of the way. It usually works until you get one hot shot that wants to be a hero.
And Fast 10?
Fast 10, we did the main opening sequence in Rome, in Italy. And that wasn't that long ago. And that's basically, they released these bombs. Jason Momoa's character releases these bombs to blow up the Vatican. And Dom is going to try to head off this bomb and try to force it into the water. And so we had a real rolling bomb. I mean, it's a steel. This thing's 6 feet round. It was a big ball, and it would light on fire, and it would on cables, and it would just be gone. It was amazing. The effects guys on that show really went out of their way.
Now, I'm confused. Why would they use rolling bombs that roll half the down the hill, use gravity to do that? Why don't they just do it the old-fashioned way, pull a Ryder truck full of fertilizer in front of the Vatican and pull the pin, suicide bomber? These guys are amateurs, I'm telling you, man. They watch the news.
It's some silly script writer that says, "Hey, let's do something cool." It's like that's not
the
cool.
Script writer's name is Chat GPT, the AI log writing tool. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the rest of the guys,
possible.
Here's how they're doing it. The script writing sessions. Everybody sits down on the table with the fifth of Jack and go, and then they go like this.
Yeah.
Dude, you know what'd be cool? We're gonna take these giant bowling balls with no holes, fill it full of explosives, roll it down a hill, watch it do some jumps, and then take some selfies with it before it hits the Vatican. That's what we're gonna do, dude. That's it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Call in the stunt coordinators. We're changing the script again. Oh no.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it's funny you say stuff like that. In the middle, when we started in Rome, it was the very early stages of filming and stuff. I think we actually started filming before his first unit did in London. And when we're halfway through our shoot, there was a sequence, the ending sequence, supposed to take place in Portugal. And so all of a sudden we get words like, "Oh, there was a big fallout. Justin Lin is not on this as a director anymore. They're bringing a new director in, and they're rewriting this Portugal sequence, the whole ending of the movie. So we don't know what's going on." And so but we're like 3 weeks out. We're supposed to go to Portugal. It's like, yeah, well, maybe not. So we were completely up in the air, and it turned out that half of us went home. Some of them went to London, and then the rest of them went to Portugal waiting to work. And they went 3 weeks out, a 3-week paid vacation to hang out in Portugal while they rewrote the script. The poor car guys on that show, they got to have cars to do certain things. And it's like, all right, what are we doing? And the car guys go, I don't know. And then they would just throw their hands up. It's like, we haven't seen anything. We can't prep anything until we know what they want, right. Which is true. So, by the time they figured out what the sequence was, gave it to the proper people, then car guys got to design the cars and build them and make it work. And, it was a mess. Yeah. It was great time for a handful of guys that got to go there and enjoy Portugal like a paid holiday. But I got to go home and it didn't work anymore after that.
And so that's another thing about the movie industry is that you may work on a picture for 4 or 5 months, and then you might not work for another year.
Yep, that's it. It's a strange. I mean, we make decent money when we're working and stuff like that, but to stay working sometimes is a task. You're a freelancer, so every movie you're on is your new employer. So when that movie's done, you got to find another employer, another project. Sometimes you can roll right into another one if you're lucky. If you're doubling a certain actor and he keeps you busy, that's another thing. But in most cases and stuff like that, like you say, we work on it for a couple months, and all of a sudden, because you were busy, you didn't get to, look for other stuff. And now I'm looking for a job, and like, okay, well, we haven't anything starting for another 6 months. I'm like, oh, I got 6 months off with no pay. So it evens out. We don't make as much as people think.
I experienced that in Fast and 1, Fast and Mike. The crew that brought me on to Too Fast and Furious, and then there was a change at the studio, and they had another crew come in, a whole other slate. So they bring in their teams, and that's when Dennis McCarthy went over there for the picture car. Because the picture car guys I working with were 40-year veterans, and Dennis was apparently tied to somebody at the studio, which is, if you're in a position of leadership, you want the people around you who are working with you, you want to trust them, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So that's not wrong. It's not favoritism. It just says, this is the crew of work. I trust these people. They've never let me down. That's what it is. So it's not cronyism or anything. It's part of reliability and so forth.
Stuff like that's worked for me and it's worked against me and stuff like that, where I've had producers and directors that stand up and say, this is my guy, this is who I like, and there's no questions asked. So I do the show. And then there's other times when I'm up for a show, the producer will say, hey, I got this guy, and the director's like, no, I've been working with this other guy for a while, and they come back and tell me, it's like, hey, they want to use so-and-so. I was like, listen, first and foremost, the director and you guys need to be comfortable with who you're using. So I don't want to be a forced hire. I don't want to get forced in there. So if you guys are comfortable with that, fine. I mean, that's nothing I can do about that, but you really need to be comfortable. And if something goes wrong, you know how to get a hold of me. No big deal. But, this business is so cutthroat. I mean, people will slit your throat for a job in a heartbeat. People that I thought were my friends, next thing I know, they're taking jobs from me that they shouldn't be doing. I mean, or they can't. It's not they can't do it. It's like, that was my connection that you just took so you can get a job. And they're not looking for the future. They're looking at tomorrow. They're looking at today. They don't look down the road. It's like, that just hurts you for all the rest of this stuff. You're never going to work for me again, and I'm going to make sure anybody else that knows about it is going to understand that you're a snake. But that's this business, this insecurity of this business. It breeds it.
And here in Los Angeles, you're in the Netherlands, so it's a different thing. So you're kind of centrally located for the most part. A lot of the movie stuff in Los Angeles is now moving to Louisiana and Atlanta, Washington State, and they moved somewhere else in the 80s. They started doing that. The promotion Canada. The late
80s, early 90s, and their television started moving up to Canada because the dollar exchange was so much better. They can get a lot more. What they didn't realize is there was no trained people up there. So stupid Hollywood would bring department heads up, and they bring stunt coordinators up. You have to hire a match up there. The next thing you know, we're training the Canadian guys to take our jobs, and now it's all Canadians. Now it's like going to Canada is like, well, I'm not going, because they've got plenty of qualified people, because we trained them. We taught them to take our jobs. Back in the day, probably more so before me, because I started 80s and stuff like that, but everybody, if you wanted to work in the industry and you want to be trained in the industry, you had to work in Los Angeles. You had to be in Los Angeles. No questions about it. Now you can be anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter, because the business has expanded that far. So it doesn't matter if you're in India, if you're in the Netherlands, it really doesn't matter. There's talent everywhere. And they've all learned from the behind the scenes video and from watching some of the stuff, and word's got out. And of course, the technology's changed, so it's made it easier for a lot of people to do things that maybe you didn't need to do back in the day.
I'm just fascinated. I don't want to get too political, but the simple fact of the matter is that the state is hostile to the movie business. Okay, they're not helping the movie businesses at all. I watch California Insider. There's a show on YouTube, and the guy from Hollywood was telling them the stories about you can't even run diesel generators anymore to run the lights because of emission stuff. That's ridiculous.
No, it's stupid and ludicrous, and slowly but surely the word's getting out. I mean, the whole green movement. Okay, I'm all for cleaning up the planet. We've done a hell of a job screwing it up with plastics and everything else, but you can't go extreme, because there's consequences at the other side, and that's what they don't want you to know. They don't tell you that. You're like, where's the stuff for these batteries coming from? Where's all this green stuff coming from? You're going to make a turbine, a wind turbine, stuff like that. How are you making that stuff? That's all from fossil fuels. And like you say, I don't want to get political and stuff like that, but there's two sides to every story, and the media and the people that are running states like California, New York, stuff like that, are only telling you one side of it, and they don't want you to know the other side because it's against their agenda. And I'm sure there's people on the energy side that's paying them off, to, hey, push my agenda, because that's how they, governments aren't run by the people that we elect anymore. It's run by the lobbyists in the corporate America that pays these guys big bucks to do whatever they want them to do.
But I'm speaking with a microscope here. It's like, if we're just talking about the movie industry, I'm fascinated why anybody votes for that. The people who are putting that slate as a priority, like we're going to kick the movie business out of here, make it very hard to do everything here.
Yep.
Charge you double the permits, right, and all that.
That was the big thing when the movies started leaving the state and the Los Angeles area and stuff like that. The film commissions, their solution was like, well, we're losing money on the film permits. We can't make the money, so we'll just double the price of the film permit so we can make up that lost income. Like, production is saying, we're leaving because it's too expensive. Now you charge us double. Now we're really leaving. So, I don't get it. Some of these people, their thought process, and they don't think. That's the problem. They don't think. They look down the road. California's known for that stuff, though. I mean, I grew up there. I grew up in Los Angeles area. I knew it like how you're in the middle of it and stuff like that. That's always been the mentality of the state. They don't think. They just like, this is what we want to do. And like, they've chased aerospace industry out. They chased the movie industry out. Any huge employer for the state, they've chased away.
Where were you
for
born?
Their own little agendas. I was born in New York.
Where?
I was born in the Bronx.
Really? Me too.
I was born in the Bronx. Oh, you really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I was born in the Bronx. I lived in New York until I was about 7, and then we moved to Hacienda Heights, which is just in the outskirts, San Diego Valley in Los Angeles. I was only like 15 minutes away from downtown, and this is before everything started pushing out towards Riverside and stuff like that.
I was there till I was 4 years old, and then we came to live the Northridge, right over there, the last exit before Simi Valley.
When there was nothing there either.
Where there was motion picture stuff going over there.
Right,
they were
Stony
always
Point.
filming out there. Yep. I used to see the trucks with the weird equipment on the back, and I'm like, what's that? Oh, they're making a movie. And they never did it off of Tampa where we lived. I asked my dad, where is that? He said, "It's over that way." That's over that way. I was 4. What did I know? Over that way.
It's a shame. I really, the movie industry moved to Hollywood when Edison, because it started in Jersey, in New York and Jersey and stuff like that. And that was the big thing. And then Edison got greedy, like everybody else, and the industry picked up and they said, screw it, we're going to go the opposite side. We're going to California, and it went to Hollywood and it flourished. I mean, it did way better than it ever did back when it was on the East Coast. And then now they're doing the same thing. I mean, people don't learn from the mistakes that are made, and they make the same mistakes, and now it's chasing away. And now the industry is a global. I mean, they fight and they do stuff, and everybody's just like, all right, we'll just go someplace else, and we don't have to put up with your.
You go to a place like Tbilisi, Georgia, and I don't mean the United States. I mean the country.
Right. The country, Georgia.
Yeah. So it's a different thing, and they certainly got tax breaks and all that kind of stuff.
They got huge tax breaks. The people treated us really well. I mean, they welcomed us with open arms because they don't get a lot of work there, and it's not a wealthy. I mean, it's they were still under alert from invading Russian troops at the time. So we always were like on our toes and stuff like that. They were more than happy to see us come in. It employed a lot of people there. The businesses flourished because we were out every night having dinner or something like that. They would supply stuff for the sets. It was great for the economy, and that's what people don't understand. It's like the state here, Atlanta, Georgia has a tax incentive of like 35%. Everybody's like, oh, you're giving away our hard tax dollars. Like that money's coming back threefold.
Right.
With the people that are being employed by the housing prices have gone through the roof now in Atlanta because of the industry, not because Atlanta's a place to be because it's an armpit, right, but because there's so much work there now. And
my cousin lives there.
People. Yeah, a lot of wealthy people are coming in there, and the housing industry is going crazy.
Atlanta is a rough town. I mean, it used to be really nice. Even Buckhead now is not what it was 20 years ago, but it is what it is. But it's bringing money into the economy, so it's a good thing. But
it is a good thing.
The future, just sitting here as a big movie buff, they don't make movies like they used to. No. I mean, I'm a big rom-com fan. I'm a big action movie kind of guy. Anything with guns, explosions, bad language, just the bad, the misogyny.
Let's face it. Yeah, let's face it. Back in the day, movies were made to entertain people, and now movies are made with some sort of a political agenda. You know, every one of them you look at, and it's got some sort of agenda. They're trying to push something somewhere, and it's typical Hollywood, typical media. But back in the olden days, you couldn't do stuff like Spaceballs or Blazing Saddles. Can you imagine shooting Blazing Saddles now? How many people would be offended?
I'll tell you a funny story.
It's funny. It's just laugh at yourself. It's funny.
The first movie I ever saw on a VHS, it wasn't even VHS, it was the old big giant like double track 8-track tapes.
Yep.
I was 14 years old, and my dad had Blazing Saddles on tape, and I watched that movie literally 160 times in the same summer. I can recite that movie from first line to the end, even today, and it drives my wife crazy. Cinema was entertaining.
It was entertaining. You didn't go in there to learn anything or do stuff. You went in to be entertained. We've lost that. There still are some, and also what we've lost is some of the creativity. I mean, it's not creative anymore. It's
Well, they're running out of stories.
Like you say, AI is taking over and stuff like that. And they just come as like, we're going to make a movie about this. And then AI fills in the blanks, and like, where was a human thought process of putting this together?
Well, I'm sure they're already making a movie about the Titanic sub that just...
Oh, yeah, the new one? I'm sure it is.
I don't know who's going to do it first, probably Netflix, right?
Yeah, probably.
But it's not going to be a movie, so how you to make that a dramatic story.
Right. And they'll call it a documentary, which it'll have nothing to do with the documentary.
And my wife wonders why I only watch war movies, because they're telling real stories, and there's thousands of stories. They're still talking about Hitler, 70, 80 years on, right?
I know it.
So that guy sold more movie tickets than anybody in the world, I think.
He's probably one of the biggest movie stars ever.
And it's a horrible human being, but anyway.
Yeah.
But, I still go to movies. For a long time, I was doing James Bond movies. I was done after Daniel Craig. I think that was the epitome for me. Roger Moore was probably one of my favorite guys.
Right.
I didn't grow up in the Sean Connery, but now that I'm older, I'm a big fan of Sean Connery.
Yeah,
I mean, he was just Roger Moore was a smooth dude, man.
He was a great character for that, and that's what's changed. They're trying to change. They're trying to make it. I don't know what they're trying to do. He's not as suave. He's not this cool guy anymore. Now I don't know.
He's not a man anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
and I kind of miss
he's not
that.
Human anymore. He's not human.
Too politically correct. I do like that James Bond movies that the cast has got diversified without being forced on me, right? Mm-hmm. So they just, like everything else everything's integrated, everything. It's totally seamless to me. But when they start talking to me, turning to James Bond into a woman, I'm saying, I'm out. I'm out. I'm sorry. Make it Mrs. Bond movie. Make it spin off.
Yeah. Do a spin-off. I mean, and that's fine. Don't call it James Bond. It's not Jamie Bond. It's James Bond.
Janice Bond.
I'm with you. Spin it off. Have a spin-off, and you can do what you want. But the James Bond franchise was built on a certain thing, and now we're altering it so much. Like everything else, we're altering it to appease a handful, 1% of the people that want this stuff. Everybody else is supposed to just deal with it. That's crap. Spin it off. I mean, you know what you want to do. Have maybe it's his girlfriend and stuff like that, and now she's become the new spy. I mean, there's plenty of great women spy movies and stuff like that.
Sure,
the Femme Nikita type stuff like that is really well done.
They can partner up in every movie, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to make Fast and Furious. They're going to spin off for Letty and Jordana Brewster.
Yeah,
I don't think Jordana could carry a movie.
Don't know. I love her. I would love to. I've worked on the two. I've never met any of the cast. I did get to meet Michelle Rodriguez on Fast 10. She came out for one day in Rome because we had to do she's chasing Jason Momoa, and we had to do a lay down at a certain location, and it wasn't duplicatable. So they brought her in. We did the motorcycle lay down. She gets up, takes off the helmet, and she did a scene. She was wonderful, and she loves to stunt people. I mean, she treated us so good. She was taking pictures with everybody, sitting up on the cars, and we just had a good time and stuff like that. But in general, I don't get to meet any of them, and I really wish I would have got to meet Jordana because she seems like a really great person, but they just don't go to the set when we do the stunts.
Yeah,
I think you're right. That she doesn't have enough of a presence. It's going to be hard to have her carry the lead. Michelle, I think, could do it. I mean, they built Michelle up. They built Michelle up for that, so you could do that. They haven't built Jordana up for it.
She's been in movies by herself.
Yeah.
So that could be different. But there's still more legs with this franchise. They are going to do an 11th. They're looking at the box numbers, I'm sure, box office numbers. It's not fantastic. It should be about $1 billion. They just crossed 700 million. So they try to make, 3 or 4 times the spend?
I think it's usually like 3 times what the budget was, and that's what they call their break even, which is crap, but that's what it is.
Far cry from the years before, if they made double it, or even.
It really hurt the industry when everything shut down, and it killed the movie theaters. And it hasn't recovered 100%. It's gotten better, but people don't go to movies anymore. And the times have changed too. With streaming and stuff like that, it's too easy to stay at home. You don't have to spend $15 for a bag of popcorn and a Coke. You can stay at home and spend $2 and watch it on off your laptop on the TV screen, which are almost the size of a movie screen now anyway. So
Fast 10 is on Amazon Prime. It has been since the third week. It's $20. It's $20, and I'm sure Universal gets most of that money.
Oh yeah. Well, it was the same with the movie theaters and stuff like that. The first week, I think 90% of the box office went to the studios, and then the movie theaters. That's why they had to charge so much for their concessions and stuff like that. That's the only way they made money. The movies industry took all the box office.
It's a changing world, but
it's definitely a changing world.
I still enjoy real practical stunt work. I really do.
Agreed.
And
most of the sets I've been on, we always try to do it practical, but then the executives come in and screw it up.
So what's going to happen with car movies once they go to electric? Are we going to be listening to soundtracks that sound like the Jetsons cars?
Who knows? As you were telling me stories about Terry, is like, we're just going to dub in a V8. Who knows what's going to happen with it? I as much as a race fan as I am, and I love drifting and stuff like that and different things, the one thing that I cannot follow well enough, and it's a great race, is the Formula E, the electric cars. They're fast and it's a great race, but it sounds like slot cars. I can't do it.
It sounds like RC cars, not even slot cars, RCs.
Yeah, and slot RC cars are exciting because they're just all over the place. Yeah. These are, it's I don't know. They're definitely grooming the new generation for that sort of stuff. The same way they're putting CG in, make it look like video game. Video games are huge now because they're grooming this younger generation to like that stuff, and help fill their seats in the theaters and rent it on the internet and stuff like that.
Right. Our video games were Pong on the Atari. Remember that?
Exactly.
And nowadays, I'm watching air combat snippets on YouTube, and I can't tell if it's real or fake.
Oh yeah, no, it's the video games are insanely good now, and the graphics are so good.
So it's changing the world, man. But hopefully we see you in more stuff.
Well, I'm still around. I'm still hitting the ground. I'm still doing my thing. And you're still
relatively young.
Yeah, relatively. I'm still able to do it. So as long as I'm able to do it, I'm going to continue to do it. I'm also moving on. I'm directing more. I'm starting to direct and I'm starting to produce things. I just actually this week, one of my films, Purgatorium, just got released and it's on Tubi and on Amazon. And I'm excited because it was a big directing job for me. And the budget was really low, but it's opening doors that were not available to me 20 years ago that I should have probably pursued and I didn't. I was just caught up in the fact that I was loving stunts and I was making a good living. And now it's like, all right, I don't want to get beat up as much anymore. I don't want to have to fall down that staircase because it hurts or get hit by this car because, a week later I'm still feeling the damn hit. So now I can sit back and I can point fingers and it's like, do, and you do this.
Go there,
you go there. There's like, and I'm going to watch you on a monitor. And if you don't do it right, I'm going to make you do it again.
Anyway, that's been a hell of a career. Even if you stop today,
Yeah, no, I'm very grateful for everything that the opportunities I've been given and things I've been able to do. Like you say, if it all ended, I would still be a very happy man, but I'm not ready to end yet.
Yeah, you still got a long way to go.
Got a ways to go.
Yeah. So this has been great. I'd love to interview more stuntmen. So if you know anybody who's trying to put their name out there, I've got 200,000 plus subscribers, and I will do it happily to talk to these people because I want to hear the stories. The stunt players are really my favorite part of the movies. They really, really are. Because those guys.
Yeah, we're involved in so many different aspects of the film industry and stuff like that. We got our hands in everything. I mean, because if a stunt comes along, we deal with wardrobe, we deal with the makeup things, we're dealing with the directorial parts of it. You know, effects, us and effects work hand in hand. There's not a department we don't work with, especially with the wires and stuff like that. I don't know how many times I had to go in and sit with the lighting crew about where they're going to put their lighting grid, because we have to hang wires in certain places and we can't interfere of, obviously. So we deal with every aspect of the industry.
Yeah, cars, the building of the cars.
Of course, yeah, of course. We always have a say in that.
Props.
Definitely.
Everything,
definitely.
all that kind of stuff. So
next weekend doing a fight with a prop, with a rifle, with a musket. And I have to work with the two actors fighting over this musket. So.
A lot of fun. Well, if you ever need a arrogant Italian guy from New York, give me a call over here, you freaking guy.
You yahoos. You yahoos.
Two Utes.
Two Utes. Hey, what? Two Utes. Oh, that's great. Again, probably a movie that could never be done again.
That's never done.
And it's hilarious. It's just it's real. That's the thing. It's real, and people don't want real anymore. They want to be fantasized.
You met my wife, right?
Yeah.
She can do the Marissa Tomei part perfectly. She's fantastic.
My clock is ticking. My biological clock is ticking.
Well, this clock is ticking, my friend. It's such a pleasure to have you. I so appreciate you coming on.
It's absolutely my pleasure. God, I wish we were closer because you and I would.
Anytime I get out there, I'm bringing my camera and I'll sit down. We'll do another interview with you because it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay.
And I'm back in the States a lot. I don't know I'm back in California much because they don't do much in there anymore. But if I ever am, we're definitely going to catch up.
Yep, I don't mind driving up. If you fly 8 hours, I don't mind driving an hour and a half to get to LA. So you just say the word, brother. And if you need a place to crash, we got a place we'd love to have you.
Love that. Thank you, buddy.
All right, my friend. Take care.
Thank you, Craig.
All right, we'll see you another time, my friend.
Yes, we will.
And that's it for The Fast Life. We'll see you next time.